interview with Zella Sobel on Thursday, January the 24th, and we're going to do an oral history of Zella. Zella, my first question is, what country did your parents come from?
From Warsaw, Poland.
And what year did they come to Dallas?
My dad came in 1905, and he came with 4 children. His wife had died, and somehow his sister, living in Waco, Texas, of all things, said to him, if you will come to Waco, there's a need for a tailor. My dad was a tailor, and I often wondered what they thought he could make with his 2 hands. But anyway, he came with 4 children to Waco, Texas, came by way of Galveston. And in 1908, he wrote to Warsaw to send him a bride. Can you imagine a lady, 23 years old, leaving family and everybody to come to a man she had never seen other than a picture? I used to say to her, how did you have such nerve? You know, can you imagine coming all the way in August when there were storms on the sea? She never dreamed that she would even see America, to come to the Golden Medina, some Golden Medina, to a man that she had never seen before. That's their picture that's back of you, right there. Is that a beautiful couple?
That's beautiful.
But fortunately, my dad was a very kind man, and my mother and father lived a very quiet life in Waco, Texas. The show was up the street from us, and my mother would go and buy a bone for $0.25 and bring it home, take the meat off of it, make wonderful meatballs, and then make a big pot of soup with the bone. We were very poor, but apparently we didn't really know it, just how poor we were. But we grew up in a Jewish community, and my mother and father would visit in the neighborhood. There were several Jewish families living in our neighborhood, and I always had to go with them because I was never allowed to be at home by myself. Although we never locked the door, we never knew. What is that?
Here, I'm just pausing for a second. So, Zella, the neighborhood was in Waco that
Yes,
they were in?
yes.
A particular part of
On
the
North 9th Street, and it was real funny. I had a big dog at that time. Her name was Nellie, and my mother would say to the dog, Nellie, go tell Zelda to come home. She would go to the Udishans, and Miss Udishan would say she's not here. She would go to the Biermans. Miss Bierman would say she's not here. Go across the street to the Wizzigs, and Miss Wizzig would say, Zelda, your dog is here. Your mama wants you to come home. Would you believe this?
Unbelievable.
But I promise you it's the truth.
Unbelievable.
It really is the
I
truth.
wanted to ask you, Zella, when your parents came from Poland, was it as a result of discrimination and, pogroms?
I don't think so. Well, yes, when my mother came,
Yeah.
it was.
Yeah.
When my father came, he came really because his wife's sister had said she would help him to care for the children. And it was an opportunity to go to a new land. Now, with my mother, her mother urged her to go. There were pogroms in Warsaw at the time. And her mother said, and of course she never saw any family, One cousin managed to immigrate to Waco, and they lived with us for some time, and then he could not stand the South, and so they moved to Detroit, Michigan. And that was the only relative that my mother had. Now, as a result of that family, one of the children married a Gansky, Gansky, and they moved to Florida. And I have a very nice, close relationship with them. They're the only relatives that I have on my mother's side. Everybody else was wiped out.
When you lived in Waco, I assume you said you attended this, or your parents attended the synagogue.
Oh, yes.
And what type of synagogue was it? Orthodox?
It was at that time Orthodox. The women sat upstairs, and I never shall forget, on Yom Kippur, my mother would bring a little sack of grapes for us, for the children, because we were too young to fast at the time. Well, when I got to be 13, and I'm grown already, I want to fast. So I did, and I never shall forget, my mother said to me, "Go see how Papa is feeling." He was downstairs, and we, of course, were upstairs. And I went, and the first thing he said to me is, "Gates to the mama. Go to your mama." He wouldn't even let me stay long enough downstairs. You know, women were not allowed.
And you went to school in Waco?
Yes.
What kind of school?
Well, it was a very nice little school, and I didn't see any anti-Semitism there at all.
So it was a state school?
Yes, Waco. And I became active in Young Judea and began to enter declamation contests, and then I became a school debater. And I was going to write Oprah a letter and tell her all about my experiences as a debater. I never shall forget, we won the high school. My partner and I won the debate championship for our high school. And we went on to the region, and I never shall forget, the regional meeting was during Passover, and my mother and Mrs. Fred packed matzah for us and food for us to take to Denton. And when we got there, the kids got into, there was a Jewish boy, Edward Fred, I showed you the picture of him, and we were the two Jews that were there, and they took the matzah and crumpled it up and put it in our beds. That was pretty funny. Well, my brother said to me, "If you should by chance win the state debate championship, I'll buy you a wristwatch." At that time, that was a real prize, to get a wristwatch at my age. Who would have money enough to buy a wristwatch? Well, we won, and so I sent him a telegram, cost 35 cents, and I said, "Won state debate championship, buy watch." So when I came home, he bought me a watch, and here we won the state debate championship. What do you think the prize for winning? Was a 4-year, fully paid scholarship to Baylor University.
Oh, goodness.
I couldn't take it. My father was sick, and so I passed it up. Didn't bother me at the time. You know, it was just, that's what you did. Father was sick, so my brother and sister borrowed $100 from the Hebrew Free Loan, and I went to business school, got I guess, graduated, if you could call it that, and got a job at the newspaper in Waco. And I worked for the Waco News Tribune. And I worked there, and I could earn 10 cents a line if I sold classified ads. So when I got through with the letters, I was making the big salary of $16 a week. In fact, I had the opportunity to get a job to make $3 more. And my dad said, don't take it. You know where you're working. They're very nice to you. You don't know what you would get at the other place. You better stay where you are. At the time, I wasn't too happy with him because I could have used that extra $3 because I spent all my money, and I would have to go borrow from my brother every week. I'd have to give him my whole paycheck because I had borrowed all the money. A spendthrift, that's what I was.
And Zella, you went to Hebrew school in Waco?
Oh, yes. Rabbi Blumenthal.
Okay. And he
Was the
subsequently
teacher.
married you, didn't he? He married
Yes,
the two of you.
yes.
Yes.
He was a rabbi from the, and I have some pictures of him, and I didn't know whether I should give them to the Texas Historical Society or whether I should give them to y'all. I'll show them to you
Okay.
and see if you think that, you know, he was really some man. I remember him taking us all to Cameron Park, and he would scoot up the bars like a monkey, show the children how to climb the bars. He was a wonderful man, very special man.
So Zella, after you had your job, and now tell us about how you met your husband and how you came to Dallas.
Well, I came for a Young Judea convention. I was 14 at the time, and that's when you had home hospitality. So they sent me to the Sobel house, and Hannah Sobel I happened to know from Young Judea conventions. So I stayed there, and of course Isaac was 5 years older than I was, so he certainly never looked at me. But I looked at him. And I liked what I saw. So like I say, I chased him till he caught me.
And how long did it take to chase him?
We went together for about 5 years. It was a long time. But I told him I wouldn't marry him until I knew he would be in Dallas every night. So that's how it all began.
And what was he doing at the time, Zella? What was his?
Well, he was traveling over the state and buying unclaimed freight. And that's how he bought that stock of paint and wallpaper and opened that little store. Can you imagine a store on Elm Street renting for $30 a month? Now, when we married, came to Waco, we went to Galveston on $80. That was how much money we had to spend. And we had a very wonderful honeymoon. Came to Waco to pick up some of our gifts. And I said, where are we going to sleep tonight, honey? He said, what do you mean? We're going to sleep in our house. What are you talking about, our house? He said, oh, I've rented a little house on Grand Avenue, and Miss Nitchie rented it to me. Her grandson was supposed to live there, but he was moved out of town, so she said I could rent the house for $30 a month. Brick house, brand new. So we drive to Dallas in a pouring down rain, run up on the porch, and he said, "Wait just a minute." His sister had said she would put a bed in the house, and so he unlocked. She left a key under the mat. He unlocked the door, and he said, "Wait just a minute. This is our first home. I have to carry you over the threshold." I weighed 88 pounds. It wasn't too hard to do. We went into the house, and the entire house was furnished.
Wow.
His family had come, furnished in early salvage, but but all furnished. We had a mahogany bedroom set, and we had a Duncan Fife dining room set, but only 4 chairs. 2 of them had been broken in shipment. We had a rose-colored velvet couch, I want you to know. And in the kitchen, we had a little small table with 4 chairs and a refrigerator. That was something else for 1940.
Was it the one that had the ice in the top?
No.
No ice in the
No ice in the top. Just a refrigerator. But that was a pretty good start. And so I didn't know a lot of people in Dallas. So I decided I'd learn to cook. The first thing I made, I invited my brother, who was living here at the time, and his wife for dinner. But I went to the Shoka on Forest Avenue, From's. Did you know there was a butcher shop on Forest Avenue? And I got a chicken. And he had made it kosher for me, and I brought it home. And I'm going to have my brother and his wife for dinner that night. And I come home about 2 o'clock in the afternoon with this dead chicken. And I had seen my mother make dressing, so I had some bread that I soaked. And anyway, the chicken was open up the back, you know. So I put the dressing in, and I tried to close it up. Fell apart. So I had some white satin ribbon. So I tied it around the chicken with a pretty little bow on top. And then I had a round Dutch oven that I'd gotten I went to put the chicken in, so the feet went in, but the top wouldn't go in. I couldn't get the top on it. Oh, I struggled with that chicken till I finally cut off the legs and got the chicken in, put the top on it, got it cooking. Well, anyway, my brother and his wife came for dinner, and he looked at the chicken and he said, "I'm not going to eat that dead chicken." He said, "Come on, get dressed, we're going out for supper." So where did we go? I didn't eat anything else that wasn't kosher. So I'll never forget the first time I went out with Isaac, I ordered a lettuce and tomato sandwich. A lettuce and tomato sandwich? I put lettuce and tomatoes on all my sandwiches. What do you mean you ordered a lettuce and well, what was I going to eat? I wouldn't eat any meat. I didn't even eat fish out. That was my story.
So Zella, how did you go from a chicken that was done up in a satin ribbon to being the premier caterer in this town?
Well, like I say, I baked a cake, and my husband was so excited with the cake that when Willie and Sadie Wallman came to visit us, he met them at the door with the cake. Look what my wife baked. Well, you know, I had met Willie when I was 14 at this Young Judea convention. I met Willie Wallman, and he was taking us somewhere, and I'm trying to act like, you know, a real first class, what is the word I should use? I don't even know. I acted like I knew what I was doing, which I didn't know. And he turned around and he said to me, now this is Willie Walnut, you talk too much, be quiet. I'll never forget it. Till the day he died, we laughed about that. But they invited us for dinner, and all of the dishes matched, which I had never seen at my house. Our dishes came out of cereal boxes. Did your dishes come out of cereal boxes? No. But everything was so pretty. The tablecloth was beautiful. The dishes were beautiful. The food was delicious. And on the way home, I said to Isaac, just you wait. I'm going to set that kind of a table. I'm going to have that kind of dishes. And I'm going to learn to cook just like Sadie Wallman. That was it.
And you did. And you did.
And I began to, I was doing, when Sisterhood would have something, I would help, or the shul would have something. And one day, a friend of mine, Miriam Rothschild, was expecting a baby. And I said, well, if you have a little boy, I'll help with the bris. In those years, you didn't know. So Joe called me that next morning, and he said, hello. I said, oh, you got a little boy. He said, that's right. And Miriam said you would help with the bris. Sure, I will. He said, but it's going to be small. We're just going to have the family. That's fine. Let me know, and I'll make some things. Called me later in the day. He said, help. Everybody that called said, what time is the bris? We had, 150, 200 people there. And Edith Levine came up to me and she said, I understand you catered this party. I said, well, I prepared the food if that's what you're talking about. She said, my daughter is going to be engaged. I wonder if you would make some of these beautiful things. I said, well, my husband's out of town. I'll have to ask him. So when he, in those years, women asked. So when he came home, I said, honey, somebody wants to pay me to do some of these things I've been doing for free. He said, oh, no, don't do that. He was really a male chauvinist. You stay home and take care of the children. I said, no, let me try it. Just one time. He said, okay, one time. I'll never forget it. One time. That's how it all began.
That's fantastic.
So I did the party for Edith Levine, and Sarah Feldman was there. And she said, my little boy's going to be bar mitzvah. I wonder if I could ask you to help with the bris, with the bar mitzvah. I said, sure, I will. And then there was a lady there from Wichita Falls. Her name was Sarah Wolfson, and she had just moved to Dallas. And she said, would you help me with my son's bar mitzvah? I said, well, I'll be glad to do it, but I'll probably over-prepare. She said, it's okay. We had enough turkey to send to the Salvation Army after the bar mitzvah, because I was so afraid, that I wouldn't have enough. So that was the beginning. And
how many years did you cater in this city? How many years, Zella?
Almost 60.
60 years.
Almost 60 years.
And can you recall some of the people you catered for in the Jewish?
Oh, yes, but I run into some people and they say to me, oh, you remember me, you did my son's bar mitzvah. And after they walk away, I say, somebody help me, who was that, And I should have kept a journal. It's a shame that I didn't. But, you know, my husband absolutely hated my working that hard. And we would go somewhere and he would say, you know me, I'm Mr. Zella Sobel. And I would cringe because I knew how much he disliked it. But he was right there to help me with everything that we had. And, but he was really not a happy camper with the business.
And Zella, can you recall the worst experience you had and the best experience you had catering?
Well, I guess one of the worst experiences, I was going to do Mitchell and Rita Blatt's wedding. And my brother used to say to me, you know, you're very foolish. If you order invitations for someone, you should get a little bit of a fee. You order napkins, you order flowers. You do all of that, and you don't charge a thing for that. I said, well, you know, I deal primarily with people that I know, and I figure I make my money on the function, so I don't want to do that. So when it came time to do Rita and Mitchell's wedding, Miss Blatt and Rita went into Aston's bakery. They were the approved ones, and they picked the cake and they paid for it. Came the day of the wedding, I said to Miss Blatt, I called her and I said, did you tell Aston's what time to deliver the cake? She said, yes, about 2:30 in the afternoon. Well, I'm busy getting ready for the wedding, and all of a sudden it's 3 o'clock, and there's no cake there. Well, I call Aston's, no one answers. I call Mr. Aston at home, no one answers. And in the meantime, Rita and Miss Blatt walk in, and she looks in the room. She said, everything looks so pretty, but where's the cake? I said, it's on the way. It was enough that I was worried. I didn't want her to worry. Well, it's getting later and later. I call the Temple, no one answers. I call the Columbian Club. I call Brookhaven. I call everywhere that I can think of, and no one has seen the cake. Well, Marty Swartz was the florist, and he's getting ready to leave. And I said, would you do me a favor? That cake's got to be somewhere. They have the date. Maybe they're just not answering the phone at the Temple. Would you send Monroe, the man? So he sends him in this truck full of debris and everything. He goes to the Temple. The back door is unlocked. And there on a table is the cake sitting there, all assembled, which we never did. It always came in boxes, and then we put it together. The next thing I know, the wedding is over, and people are in Kaplan Auditorium, and the guests are out getting hors d'oeuvres out in the lounges. And Miss Blatt says to me later, you know, Zella, I looked over and I swear I didn't see the cake. And the next thing, somebody hugged me and kissed me and so forth, and I looked back and the cake was on the table. What happened there? I said, that's Miss Blatt when I hit the bottle. That's when my hair turned white. Man comes in, had put it in this dirty truck like this. I got it, Miss Sobel. I got it. How he ever drove with it all assembled.
That was your worst.
That was the worst thing.
What was the best?
The best thing that happened to me? There were so many best things that I never shall forget. I did a party for Sam Luderman, And when he paid me, there was an extra check in there made out to me for $150. And I was getting ready to go to Israel. And I called him and I said, Sam, there's a check there. Is that a check that goes to the synagogue for a fee that you have to pay? He said, no, ma'am, it's not. That's a check for Zella Sobel to spend in Israel on herself. That picture right there is what I bought. And I always remember him. It was so sweet of him.
Talk a bit about your family, Zella. You had children.
Unfortunately, I had one daughter that died as an infant. It was during the time that there was so much measles, and I had measles. And I always felt that had something to do with it. And then, of course, Gail called me one day, and she said, you know, Mother, I feel like I have a toothache in my hip. She said, I have such pain in my hip. And it was near Rosh Hashanah, and I said, well, Daddy and I are going to come to Houston for Rosh Hashanah. So we went, and I said, it's Rosh Hashanah, but we have to make an appointment with the doctor. And so they did some x-rays and discovered that she had cancer. Let's see, where can I answer it?
Zella, you had 3 children. One died in infancy, and then you're telling us about your
About
daughter.
Marcia.
Yes.
My Miss Marcia she was like a little renegade, where Gail was the one that I never shall forget when she was at school at OU. And we went to visit with her. She came running to show us beautiful leaves that, oh, look at nature, Mother. The leaves are so gorgeous. She had such an appreciation for everything beautiful. Now, Marcia was like the North and the South Pole. If it was Purim, we'd have to dress Gail like Queen Esther. We'd have to dress Marcia like Haman. There was as much difference in the two as the North and the South Pole. And where Gail would come in and always help make beautiful trays, Marcia would run away. She wanted no part of anything and now she's a wonderful cook. She and her husband love to cook. I never shall forget, she came home one day and she said, I'm going to get married. You are? Who are you going to marry? Well, I'm going to marry a man that's not Jewish. Total big shock to us. And we cried a bucket of tears, I don't mind telling you. And then we thought, we lost a child at 28. We were surely not going to lose Marcia. So about about 2 months later, one day I got a call from Fred. And he said, what would you say if I told you that I've been going to a class and I've just about decided to convert? I said, if you think it will please us, don't. If you think it will please Marcia, don't. Because I never want to hear from you that you did anything because you thought we wanted you. We made up our minds that you were Marcia's choice. We lost 2 children. We were not going to lose Marcia. So he converted. And if I tell you this is the best Jew you've ever seen in your life, this young man never sits down to eat that he doesn't make a motzi. It's just, I wrote his parents a letter, and I told them, we weren't any happier to get your son than you were to get our daughter. But unfortunately, we lost children. And I told them, I said, you know, you wanted Fred to be an Eagle Scout, he was an Eagle Scout. You wanted him to travel around the world, he traveled around the world. He did everything you ever asked him to do. The only thing he did that you didn't like was that he was marrying a Jewish girl. But he said to me, you know, I never had much religion in my house. Well, of course, it took him a while to finally decide that he had a good thing going. And they have a very nice relationship with them.
And you have grandchildren.
Oh, I have grandchildren.
Tell me about you.
And I have great-grandchildren.
And great-grand. Talk about
Oh,
them
my
yourself.
goodness. Well, our grandchildren, I'll never forget, our grandson came home one day and told his parents, he had been to college 2 years, and he told his parents that he was bored, he wasn't learning anything. I said, what do you mean you're not learning anything? He said, well, I'm telling you the truth. I promise you I'll get a degree, but I'm not going to get it right now. He said, I have enrolled in air controller school. You enrolled in air controller school and you didn't even talk to us about it? Well, if I had talked to you about it, you would have tried to dissuade me. And I decided that that's what I want to do. And I'm of age to do what I want to do, so that's what I'm going to do. Okay, so he left town and he went to the first section of schooling. And he called us one day and he said, I hope you all will come. It's kind of like a minor graduation from 6 months of what I have learned. And I hope you will plan to spend a little extra time because Heather and I are going to get married. Who is Heather? We never heard of Heather. Well, out of 400, she picked me. You hear what I'm saying? So we went to the wedding. That's the picture of them there. And shortly after that, he was sent to Wiesbaden, Germany. So I said, what are you doing in Wiesbaden, Germany? They're teaching me how to direct helicopters up and down. And I'd like for you and Mom and Dad to come and visit us. Well, I had sworn I'd never go to Germany. But I went to Germany. I went to Wiesbaden, Germany. And it was very interesting. We got to see a part of the world that I never dreamed I would see. And he was there a very short time and was sent back. And now he's, I ask him now what he does, directing helicopters up and down over Fort Rucker in near Alabama. And that's what he's doing. And they have 2 children. And the oldest one is 3, and the other one is 1. And they're just adorable. And we helped them to buy a house. And they're doing just great there. And he has 1 more year of school. And then He has already been approached by the person in charge of the airport in Austin. They want to talk to him about a position there. He said he'd like to either be there or in Dallas. So we'll see.
So, Zella, which synagogue did you belong to? Or do
I belong to Sheriff?
Sheriff, you belong to Sheriff. You always belong to Sheriff?
Always.
Always did.
No, when we first married, we lived on Grand Avenue, and Teferet, we could walk to Teferet, and I had never been in a car on Shabbos or on a holiday. But then, when our first child was born, and she was had playmates, we'd have to take her all the way north. We decided to join Sheriff Israel, and we bought a house on Stanford for $15,000. Can you imagine? And I never shall forget, we lived on Stanford, and we were carpooling to the shul down to, that's when Sheriff, before they moved north. And I picked up one of the little girls, and we stayed during the, it was foolish for us to drive all the way home, so we stayed, and this family had what they called a Hanukkah bush. Only he said it in Yiddish, a Hanukkah boim. And I said to them, I can't let Gil go play with your child, because if you have a Hanukkah bush, she wants to know why she can't have one. Anyway, we went, and the rabbi was talking to the children, and he said children should remember their friends' celebration. If you want to send them gifts, but Jewish children should not celebrate Christmas. On the way home, we're taking this little girl home. She's very quiet. And I said, you're so quiet. What's the matter with you? She said, you know, Rabbi Weisfeld was talking about Jewish children having Christmas trees. And you know, Aunt Zella, he was looking right at me. Never forget it. She went home and told her mother and father they were never to have a Hanukkah bush again. They never did. You know, when they say a little child shall lead them, I won't tell you who it was, but it was a very good friend of mine. And another time, she was having a big party. And I made some garnishes for her out of turnip flowers that I enjoyed doing. And I took them over in the afternoon, and she had the table laid out, and one tray had a little card on it that said brisket, another one had turkey, the other one had a ham. And I said, oh, you're having Jewish people and you're having a ham? Oh, Zella, you know we eat ham. I'm not a hypocrite. So I'm having, I said, you're making a mistake, but your business. Here are the garnishes. So the next morning, we went to the party about 10 o'clock that night, and most everybody was gone already, and I said nothing to her. The next morning at 7 o'clock, my phone rang, and it was Joe Rothschild. I said, did you have anything to do with that party? Last night I didn't see you there. I said, well, I made the garnishes, and we didn't come till 10 o'clock. We had something else to do. He said, I was insulted. He said, you have a party and invite Jewish people? and you have a ham on the table? He said, Miriam and I walked out. He said, I'm sorry. That was terrible. I couldn't wait to call my friend and tell her. I told her, I said, you don't do that.
So following on that, Zella, can you give us kind of a quick description of how you think the Dallas community has changed since the time you arrived? How was it, 60 years ago?
Well, I think
and
that
what it is now.
You mean the Jewish community
Yeah,
or the community at large?
The Jewish community. Let's talk about the Jewish community.
I heard something on TV last night for the community that just absolutely shook me. This young man is on, and he's so happy. He and his girlfriend are going to have a baby.
Yes. Where's the wedding?
There was no word about a wedding. I'm sitting there and I'm listening to this. This you have to have on TV? He was so excited because they're going to, and he said, I and my girlfriend are going to have a baby. Now, as far as the Jewish community is concerned, I think there are more people not keeping kosher. A lot more people don't keep kosher. And I find that the Orthodox community has grown. I hear. And sometime when I'm in Tom Thumb, I see baskets this high from Orthodox communities that are shopping there. But I think the community has become very lackadaisical. Things don't seem to be real important anymore. Keeping kosher and observing holidays.
Do you think it's because the community has grown much larger? When you came, was the community much smaller?
Maybe that's it. I really don't know. I just find it so hard to understand. I go to shul. We just got through spending a young fortune to enlarge Shearith Israel. And sometimes there's not a minion there to say Kaddish. And that's very sad, you know. I know my friend Deborah Rubin goes every Sunday morning to help make a minion. Well, I came from an Orthodox background. It's still, I don't go on the pulpit because my dad would look at me and say to me, "It's good, Meshuggah." He would. So I don't do that. In fact, when I was honored, they had something at shul, and the rabbi called me and said, "We have selected you to be honored." I said, "Rabbi, please pick someone else. I don't go on the pulpit." My dad would look on me with scorn. He said, "That's okay. We'll honor you with you standing down below the pulpit." So that's the way it was. Anything else?
Well, Zella, this is wonderful. I just, when you look back on your life, what is the thing that gave you the most pleasure and really grieves you the most? Just tell us about, your life. What were your significant events in your life?
Well, my marriage, I had a wonderful, happy marriage.
How long were you married for? How long were you married, you and I?
We lacked 1 week being married 50 years. My husband was sick. 1 week, we would have been married 50 years. We had a very good marriage. We had wonderful children. And I wouldn't trade places with anyone in the world. That's all I can tell you.
And we're so proud of you being in Dallas, but what are you so proud of? What is it that makes you proud when you think back over your years?
Well, I just feel like I'm a part of a wonderful Jewish community. And I wouldn't live anywhere else. I know my daughter would have liked for me to move to Austin. She said, you know, you're the last of 8 children. You really don't have, I have 2 nieces that are here and live in the building, for which I'm thankful for. They're from my daddy's first family. They're his oldest child's children. And I have a very close relationship with them. I'm thankful for that. But to move to Austin, I felt like I would interfere in their life. And they would worry about whether I was making it to shul, and they would have to take me here and there because I'm certainly not going to drive in Austin. So I feel like this is my home. And I'm very satisfied to live here. I like it here at the Athena. There are many Jewish people here. I can't tell you how many Jews there are here. And someone is forever going to the grocery or going wherever, whatever. So the fact that I'm not driving right now with this bad arm, I told you what the doctor said. He said he doesn't worry about what I would do to me. He would worry about what I might do to someone else because I can barely turn my head. And he said, don't drive right now. I'm ready to tell him I'm ready to sneak.
Zella, just one last question. If you had one wish, just one wish, what would it be? Anything.
What would I wish for? I would just wish that my family maintain their health and that everybody be well and that everybody I know be well, because when I say my prayers at night, and Rabbi Blumenthal said to me, you never go to sleep without saying the Shema. And you know, it lingered with me all these years, and that's all I wish for.
Oh, that's fantastic. Thank you so much, Zella. Thank you so much. I bet you this is one of the best you've ever had.
Yeah, fantastic.